All right, welcome to this week before Christmas edition of the 413 Strong podcast. I'm Doug Odom, the owner and head coach of 413 Barbell Club, the community for Christian lifters wanting to lose inches around their waist while growing their faith. Now, I've got a few things I'm going to talk about today. One thing that's fresh before I get into 3 lessons you can learn from old school bodybuilding. What's going on, Aaron? You're the boss man. You are, bro. You're also the cat daddy. Aaron posts awesome videos of him and his cat. He's inspired me. I got one I need to post from yesterday. But listen, I'm going to try to get through this in 10 or 12 minutes. I like podcasts short and sweet. There's a place for an hour-long podcast. I respect those. I listen to them sometimes. But I love a good 10 or 12-minute podcast. It's short, it's digestible, it's to the point. That's what I like. So, but feel free to comment. What's going on, Glenn? I just want to say Merry Christmas. And we're going to talk about 3 old school principles that I think would help anyone get more gains, even though they're maybe not the most popular of options today. And I also want to say, speaking of old school, I did say Merry Christmas, okay? And I want to share my heart with you guys, okay? Because there is a war on Christmas. And I was journaling about this morning. And we know there's a war on Christmas because Jesus said, it's obvious. Jesus said, "You will be hated by everyone because of my name." And that's just one of the reasons we know there is a war on Christmas. And hear me out. We need to be loving as Christians, and we need to be considerate of other people. But sometimes we forget. Do you know what love is? Love is truth. Love is truth. And I'm trying to help you understand and present this truth. I feel like sometimes we're afraid to say Merry Christmas, and I'm not offended by Happy Holidays. It bothers me when someone is afraid to say Merry Christmas because they think it's going to offend someone else. Happy Holidays. Yeah, we got a bunch of holidays going on this time of year. Cool. But it's also okay to say Merry Christmas. And I know not everyone believes the same way we do, but here's the thing. I think this is flawed Christian thinking to think, well, everyone may not believe the same as I do. What you're doing is you're treating Jesus as a fantasy. You're treating Jesus like Santa Claus. Well, not everybody believes in Santa Claus. Not everybody believes in Jesus. Now hold up. Santa Claus is a fictional fantasy character. Jesus, you see, I don't just celebrate Jesus because of my beliefs. I know Jesus is a historical figure. His birth is historical fact. His death and his resurrection are historical facts. And listen, he has sold the highest number of books ever. 5 billion plus Bibles have been sold. If The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, sold 5 billion books, we'd flip our minds, right? But Jesus is the most famous man that's ever lived. And how can you tell me the most famous man that's ever lived shouldn't be acknowledged for his birthday, even though it's not his real birthday? But you can't tell me that. You can't tell me that. And so I know Jesus, Christmas may not be your holy day, but it is a day on the calendar here in America. It's celebrated worldwide. Saying Merry Christmas is not excluding anyone. It's just acknowledging a historical figure, a historical person. Just like other holidays, other events, other people we celebrate. The only difference was Jesus came to walk with you and to give you everlasting life. And to me, I'm going to say Merry Christmas because that trumps anything anybody else has. So, now that we got that out of the way, and I know that's old school for some people, but I stand by 110% because I know who wins in the end. So I encourage you to follow Jesus because we're not here just to survive life. We're here to thrive. We're here to thrive. Now, speaking of thriving, I believe 110%, you're going to thrive when you are at your best physically, because that means you're also going to be at your best mentally, and you're going to just function the way God intended you to function as a high-functioning person that's in good shape, mentally, physically, spiritually. Now, I've always been a fan of old school bodybuilding, and I feel like there's a few things the old school guys got right. I've always been a fan of it, and I interviewed and talked with Reg Park's son. And if you don't know Reg Park, that was Arnold Schwarzenegger's like mentor and idol. Reg Park's son kind of gave me some further insight about nutrition back then and why he feels like guys like Reg Park who are natural looked better than some guys that are natural today, and some things he did, the way he trained, the way he ate, that were really effective. So anyway, but there are 3 things I want to especially cover today that I've noticed in all my research and reading on old school bodybuilders that would really benefit anyone. Now, first off, old school bodybuilders had limited distractions in the gym. Limited distractions. There were no phones back then, and let me say this about phones. Like, my clients use their phone to track their workouts. The app we track workouts on makes you more focused because it's timing you. It dings when it's time for your set. That the app in itself will not distract you. It will enhance your workout. But if you're switching away from the app, surfing the web, getting on Instagram, getting on TikTok, showing someone else a funny video, now that's where phones becomes distracting. And even with music can be a good thing as long as you're not changing songs a lot, I think. But like Vince Gironda in Vince's gym in California, if you would have walked in there with headphones today, he would have kicked you out. Music can be distracting, I think, in a lot of gyms. And that's why a lot of guys wear headphones to listen to their music. But I think no music is great because you just hear the sound of the iron clanging, as long as it's not like rubber plates or something. But good old iron plates, it's just a great sound. And it's motivating. And I think that's one old school aspect, just the lack of distractions, just hearing the sound of iron. That was a good thing. And when there was talking, it was just camaraderie, lifting each other up, pushing each other, posing in front of mirrors, saying, let's bring this up. You got too much of this. We need more of this. It's like that doesn't, it just doesn't fit. Now, number 2, guys in the old school, they focused on compound lifts, at least early on in their career, and they used those to build a base. Whether it was silver era lifters like Reg Park, like Steve Reeves, or even like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Frank Zane, Franco Colombo, Dave Draper, one of my favorites, they all focused on compound lifts and made progress. Like Dave Draper, I love reading about him talking about going into the Santa Monica Dungeon Gym at the bottom of a hotel. There was one light bulb and there was leaks hitting the ground from the roofs. It was like damp and dark and it's kind of musty, and like he would talk about, the bench was just wooden, it had splinters and just rusty plates and barbells and dumbbells, none of this fancy stuff. And they just focused on basic movements, training hard, eating well, sleeping well, and we'll get to that next. And they made amazing progress. Same with the silver era. Those guys were strong. Even Steve Reeves, that didn't train for strength. There's the story about him doing a wide grip, snatch width grip deadlift of like 400 pounds easy. These guys were strong, and it's like common sense. If you want to get strong, if you want to look strong, you should probably get strong. And we've lost that today. We want to do all these circus tricks to make us look strong without actually getting strong. It just doesn't make sense. So that's one thing I like about the old school bodybuilders. They focused on compound lifts and actually got strong so they would look strong, which is more practical and more fun. Number 3, they weren't so meticulous as we are today. They didn't overstress or overanalyze nutrition, training, etc. Listen, I train people that just want to be in better shape, better versions of themselves. And I train guys that compete in bodybuilding and physique. And I had someone tell one of my athletes who's in the off season, and understand guys, when you're a bodybuilder that competes, you've got in season and off season. In season, you're cutting body fat while maintaining muscle mass. So you look as big as possible, but as cut as possible so you can see all the muscles. And that takes, sure, a good, meticulous approach. But in the off season, it's so hard just to get on stage is amazing. And if you've ever seen a bodybuilding stage, you're like, well, that guy's not in great shape. He probably busted his tail just to get there that day. Stepping on that stage is a huge accomplishment of itself. And I'm not a participation trophy guy, but it is a huge accomplishment just to make it to the stage injury-free and not quit. But going through something that strenuous and that difficult, you have to give yourself a mental break. And so I highly encourage my bodybuilders and physique athletes to not track macros in the off season. You've got to give yourself a mental break. You've got to have a healthier relationship with food in the off season. And some people miss that big picture. And I had, someone tell one of my guys, man, you're making a mistake not tracking macros in the off season. It's going to affect the quality of your physique, blah, blah. People don't know what they're talking about because they have no idea the context. And it's always people that's never competed themselves. And sure, if you're going to compete, you got to be really meticulous. But the old school guys, they didn't get as lean as athletes and bodybuilders get today. And they were just kind of nonchalant about it. They ate well, but they didn't overthink it. They weren't measuring everything. They weren't tracking macros on a phone, that's for sure. And they were just getting on stage, and it was a muscle contest. It was who had the most muscle, who could display their physique the best. And even today, if your goal isn't to get on stage or to do, put on spandex and flex in front of people, you can still enjoy the process of building your body and burning fat, feeling more energy, being a better version of yourself. I mean, that's life. When you're doing that and growing spiritually, that's life at the fullest extent. I heard someone talk about diet culture around the holidays. I'm like, what is diet culture? What is diet culture? Like, you should diet at times. We need to take care of our bodies. Diet culture is taking care of your temple. It's reality. It's not a diet culture. Do you know what the opposite? Do you want me to call it what the opposite of it would be? I'm not going to say it on this podcast, but let me just tell you, we need to do, our society is severely obese. Our society is severely obese, and it's only getting worse. We need to understand that so many people fail to get in better shape because they think it's going to take something super meticulous and super strict. And that's why I'm happy to point some people to the old school way of doing things, saying, hey, you don't have to track macros. If you just focus on eating on healthy, nutritious foods, studies have even shown by default you will eat less calories per day than going for processed things. And so I highly encourage you to rethink your process. I highly encourage you to understand it doesn't take a meticulous approach. You could be like the old school guys and focus on reducing stress whenever possible, focus on sleeping more, staying hydrated, and eating whole, nutritious foods at least 90% of the time. That's very realistic, I think. And you will grow muscle, you will burn fat, you will naturally raise testosterone levels, you will just be a better version of yourself, and you'll feel more in alignment, and you'll feel more balance between faith, family, and fitness, and that's the goal. So I appreciate everybody watching this episode about old school bodybuilding and my quote-unquote old school approach on saying Merry Christmas. Is my opinion, but if you agree with it, let me know in the comments. And I am doing a 6-week challenge to start January 1st. I've never done this before. I'm super pumped because I've seen some awesome results in 14-day challenges. So I'm just like, what are we going to do in 6 weeks? My app has a leaderboard. It's going to be competitive. It's going to be fun. So if you want in on this, guys, listen. These apps that charge you 10, 20, 30 bucks a month, you're just paying for information that's already on the internet, and you're not getting accountability. This challenge is very affordable. And especially if you act today and you get my early bird rate, it's only $197. In-person training, you're paying $75 or $100 per session without the nutrition and accountability outside the gym. Okay? When you go to, amen, Paul, Christ is King. When you go with some online trainers, I mean, sometimes you're looking at $500 a month or more. So this is a very, very good opportunity for some of you to experience online coaching, to set the tone for 2024 after years of failed attempts in January to get the ball rolling, years of being disappointed in summer and not wanting to take your shirt off because you didn't make the progress you thought you'd make. This is a chance to do it right. And so I encourage you, take advantage of my early bird deal today. If you're tired of the same old, and thinking you have to sacrifice to, get results, lower your quality of life, lower your quality relationship with God just to get in shape with fitness, just to focus on it. It doesn't take that. You can grow both and have a healthy balance of faith, family, and fitness. So join that challenge today if you're interested. Early bird rate ends today. So appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your week and a Merry Christmas. I'll be live one more time this week, and then that'll be the end until Wednesday the 27th of this podcast, all right? Hope you all have a good one.